relationship with each other and walking with each other.
You talk about isolation, kind of like it's just the person who's grieving. But people will say, well, hi, how are you? You don't dare really say anything.
Yep.
And why is that? Because people are really fake. They don't ask you because they're interested. It's polite conversation. That's different.
Yeah,
And I don't have the time to waste, so I won't.
there we go with
There's the
problem. Yeah.
Is that really a problem, or is that a protection that the one who is asked, well, hi, how are you?
Well, the one who asks, hi, how are you, this is usually just a greeting for the day.
That's right, they aren't really interested.
They're not really interested.
And if you say, well, I'm really kind of miserable, do you have an hour?
Schedule some time
Or you
for
go
it.
to a clerk and she'll say, yeah, have an hour. Point blank, serious, and you know I can. It's hard for me, but I can look pretty serious. I say, do you really mean that?
That's harsh, though.
That's not harsh, she shouldn't have said it in the first place if she didn't mean it.
Have you ever clerked?
And I'm not
Have
conscious.
you ever clerked?
Well,
Have you ever been a
don't be
cashier?
defensive.
I know, I'm defending that person.
Oh, gosh, we're gonna get into a fight here.
That's part of your job, between two people.
You know, I think what we're saying
No,
though,
we just disagree to disagree.
I think what we're saying is that there's something going on in our lives that is topmost. And many people don't realize that. And we become afraid to say anything for fear people are gonna say, well, you know, I'd really like to talk, but I gotta go. I'm running behind. And we get rejected, and then we do get isolated, and our social area goes like this. However, many times when we say, you know, I'm having a tough time today because such and such happened, many people say, really? You know, that happened to me not long ago. What's going on? And if you leave here tonight and go to a Walmart or Kohl's or wherever, and you're waiting in line and you say you were just at a grief seminar, I guarantee you that probably 9 out of 10 people will click into something that's going on with them. Because a lot of this grief has been bottled up over time and people haven't dealt with it. And they'll understand. But we really fear that we're gonna be rejected, and so we don't say it. And you know, many times I'll tell people, you know, have a good day. And what I mean, and often I'll say, have a safe day. You know, whenever somebody delivers something in a house, I usually say, I hope you drive safely out there. There's a lot of crazy people out there. And I'll give you a 10-minute head start, and then I'll be out there. You know, and sometimes you can make a little bit of a joke about it, but you can communicate things to people too like that. Okay, what are some of the signs of emotional disease? Crying, yeah. Have you ever noticed that many people will cry when everything else seems pretty benign? You know, at church, people frequently cry. And I've learned that that isn't necessarily because of the sermon, but it might be that there's a hymn that we used to sing together and we no longer can sing it together. That this brings back a certain memory. And it might be that when we put up the Christmas decorations, that triggers into a whole bunch of memories that we only encounter once a year. So it isn't necessarily what we're saying as much as everything that's going on. And it might be a smell when you come into church. You know, in the Roman Catholic Church, they have a lot of incense. And a lot of times that will trigger a memory. And a lot of times we don't think it ought to, but this is just part of the normal part of who we are. You might be driving in the car and all of a sudden you hear one of those songs on the radio and suddenly you're not in the car, you're back in high school. Or you're back doing something with somebody. So all these. What are other emotions that come up?
Short temper.
Short temper, what do you mean by that? Yeah, short temper, you know, when all of a sudden we're very touchy and somebody says, oh, are those new glasses? What's wrong? Don't you like them? You know, and we get on each other on things like that. And I think this is part of a lot of road rage, is that people have got losses going on they haven't ever dealt with, and they gotta get rid of that anger. You know, what happens if you get angry with God? I let God take it. He can take it. He understands about that anger, and I don't have to defend God. And many people think we ought to defend it. We don't have to defend it. You know, Jesus, I think, exhibited a lot of anger many times, but it was righteous anger, because it was anger about what was going on in the church or in people's relationship to God. You know, you can deal with God on that. You can tell him you don't like it. You wish it was different. And he'll understand. Other emotional things here. Just spend another minute on that one.
Anxiety?
Anxiety. Yeah, and how many times have you felt very anxious and things are going on in your system and you just can't sort of settle down? Okay, after we get the symptoms of this, then we're going to draw another circle here. And we're going to start to look at what are some of the causes of the symptoms of disease. What are some of the causes of intellectual disease?
Don't feel you're in control.
Yeah, out of control, really. What else? What are others, causes of the symptoms of dis-ease?
Say I sleep too much?
Hmm?
Sleeping, she's accusing me of taking too many naps.
Ah. Well, you know, that can be true too, that a lot of times we will take a nap in order not to think about the loss that we had. And when we wake up, what were we working on before we went to sleep and took the nap? And that can be a form of adaptation, yeah.
Oh, no, I was just
Oh,
thinking.
okay. You know, other causes of intellectual disease. You know,
Walking around without,
grief.
it's a big
Grief is
part
a
of this
big
one.
one. Yeah. And sometimes we're overloaded because there's too much going on, and so we can't think through it. So we gotta overload. You know, when you have a loved one die, all of a sudden you're confronted with, when do you want the funeral? Where do you want the funeral? Who's gonna be the pallbearers? Are you going to have a reception afterward? Who's gonna be the funeral director? How long is it going to be? What time of the day is it going to be? Whew. Wow. People say we'd like to give a memorial in their honor. Where would you like the memorial to go? How long do you keep the house the way it is? I mean, you got hundreds of decisions that had to be made, and some of those have to be made within a couple days. That can be overwhelming.
I think one of the parts of grief, at least I speak for myself, is that I can't watch the news anymore because things hurt 1,000 times more.
Yeah.
I would have been able to filter it a little bit, but everything seems to be exasperated in my mind. I feel tremendous grief of what's going on in the world.
Excellent point. You know, we have seen so many atrocities on TV, but it was almost like a movie until we have a loss. And then all of a sudden we say, wow, can you imagine what it was like for people to have their loved one in a hospital and then it is blown up? Can you imagine the pain when they put them in a safe place and it wasn't safe? And all of a sudden we become very sensitive to that. Yeah. Yeah. Very much so. Can you imagine what it's like for people to have their car stolen at gunpoint and all their personal stuff in there is taken away? Before that, it made a little sense, but now it really comes in on us. Yeah. Well, let's look a little, what are some of the causes of physical illness, physical disease?
You get sick.
Okay, and what causes you to get sick?
You don't eat.
Not even when.
You don't eat, you don't get enough rest,
Stress.
stress, that's a biggie, stress. What else? You know, there's viruses, there are germs around, and a lot of times our systems are really wore out because of our grief. And so any little thing that comes along, we get it. We get it because we don't have the resistance anymore. And sometimes we don't care if we get it because, you know, what's the sense of me being healthy? I'm by myself, so I might as well be sick, you know, makes no difference to me.
And you may want to be sick.
You may want to be, what's the advantage of being sick?
You can join them.
Hmm?
You can join them.
You can join them. So ultimately you can join them, but otherwise you might go to the doctor will listen to you. What happened right after this loss? Wow, you get to talk about it. And then they'll put you in the hospital. And what happens in the hospital? They're gonna come around and touch you physically, because that's part of their job. And if nothing more, they have to wrap the cuff around you in order to take your blood pressure. They might touch different parts of your body. They might put a dressing on, something like that. It's smart to get sick. Yeah, it sounds strange, but you know, there's a lot of advantages for getting sick. And then people come up and visit you too. What are you doing in the hospital? Well, you don't start out by saying it all started with grief, because they're gonna say, well, I can't stay. I like it. But you can say, you know, well, this and that and the other things going on, and you know, I'm all alone at home, and well, don't worry, we'll come up and see you regularly. Wow, there's a lot of advantages to getting sick.
But people die there too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also up here, you know, again, grief is one of the big reasons why we get sick. And some of it, they might say are psychosomatic, but it might be sympathy pains for the person that we have lost. And so it makes sense to get sick like that. Let's go over here real quick. What are some of the causes of emotional disease?
Depression.
Hmm?
Depression.
Depression. Yeah, and that's a big one where we're trying to make sense of something and we cannot make sense and nobody else can make sense of it. Why did my loved one die? Why did my loved one leave me? Why am I all alone? Now, what should I be doing at this point? Why won't people call me? Why won't people come over? You know, that's true depression. Yeah, what are some other emotional,
Routines upended.
hmm?
Routines upended.
Oh, routines upended.
What's that?
Yeah,
Oh, routine.
yeah. Let's just put upended. Yeah, a lot of routines are upended. You know, how many times have you gone into a restaurant and they say 2 and you say, no, 1? Wow, that's hard. How many times have you gone to the grocery store and you wanted to get something for supper and you had to find something for 1? They don't make many things like that that are good tasting. I mean, they make some of those things, but some of them aren't worth eating. You know, and so we have to look at what all that means and how hard that is. Any other emotional things that cause emotional disease? You ever been overwhelmed? Yeah. You ever been told by people, you're crazy, you're nuts? Yeah. You know, there's a lot of people who reject us and put labels on us that aren't necessarily so. What are some of the things that cause social disease?
Well, not wanting, obviously, to go to people.
You just don't wanna go by yourself.
Yeah. And many things are made for couples and not for singles. And also many people will exclude you because, you know, something happened to your spouse, are you gonna take mine? And they get worried about that. They get worried about that. And everybody knows what's best for you except you. And you're trying to sort it out. Where do I fit in? How do I fit in? What does it mean? And how many times have they told you, Don't go to a dark parking lot at night by yourself, like going to Aldi's or Kohl's or something over there. You say, well, wait a minute, that's the only time I got, but there's nobody to go with me. Oh, that can be difficult. That can be difficult. Okay, let's go. One thing.
We're going more.
One thing, what are some of the treatments of the symptoms of intellectual? What are some of the ways that we are treated so we get out of the intellectual openness in our minds?
Read scripture.
Hmm?
Read scripture.
Oh, read scripture. Yeah, you might want to do some reading that you have read before and something that makes sense. Something you know, but you can still focus on. You know, many people read John 3:16. For God so loved the world. Wow, I'm part of the world. He must love me. That he gave his only begotten son. Well, he had a son that also died. Wow, just think of that. So that we will not perish. Wait a minute, my loved one died, but they're still alive. They didn't perish. They walked through the door of death into eternal life. This can be very helpful for us. Yeah.
To return, or try to return to some of the social groups that you belong to. And my story, it really hits all four of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the story that I'm going to share is about a month after my husband passed away. The president of our guild insisted that I be hostess for the February meeting, and that meant the whole dinner. And to me, that was just, no, I can't do it. That's my initial, it's been too soon, I can't do it. I also lived about 40 miles from the church, so I just can't do this. And she was so insistent, and, you know, she kind of wrapped me around the church a couple of times, and I said, okay. And that meant that I made the dinner, I brought the dinner, I set up all the tables because I didn't have time to get a group together to do it. And make the centerpieces, you know, all of the fussy stuff that guild did. But it was good from the standpoint, intellectually it made me think, physically it made me work, socially I was with my friends who loved me and wanted me to come back, and what's the other, emotionally it satisfied I was needed.
Yep.
So with that particular act, I mean, I really didn't think I was ready to go amongst the ladies.
Mm-hmm.
You asked me how my husband was, and my eyes, or how are you, my eyes would fill with tears. But that particular action hit all four of those, and it took the me out and made me part of them.
And you know, those tears said a lot, though. That you have a lot of love for your husband, and you miss him and all, and other people can understand that. And I'm glad to hear you did that, and that you said that, because often we say, well, I'm not ready yet. Well, when will you be ready? And there's no magic time.
When you were talking, and I'm thinking that particular experience hit all four.
Yep.
It wasn't a cure-all,
Mhm.
but it was a start
Yep.
to return to what I had been very active in.
And keep in mind, there is no cure-all. We will grieve intermittently for the rest of our lives because we have that memory of our loved one. And many people, you know, you'll hear them say, well, I remember when Dad said this, I remember when Mom did this, gee, Mom used to make this way with this recipe, I wish he had left it to us. You know, this is all part of the grieving that's going on. But it isn't where it's going to disable us at that point. But some fond memories, and we want to keep those fond memories alive.
But it was the Lord's hand that hit all four at once.
Oh, yeah. And you know, keep in mind, all this comes back to the center here, which is our faith in God. And yeah, God does lead us in various ways. He provides things that we never dreamt of. Never dreamt of. We got a marvelous God. He's watching over us, and he knows what we need and how we can be healed. Okay, any other, social treatments here? Any other social treatments that we have?
I think one of the things that helps is to do something for somebody and get the focus off me.
Exactly.
So I have a shut-in friend, I make her scones and I bring her scones.
Mhm.
But it makes her happy and it makes me happy and
Yeah.
it gets the focus off my grief.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you know, when we serve others, we get served in that process. But sometimes we're reluctant to do that. And sometimes we feel incapacitated. But you know, we can really fire up the old brain to understand what we gotta do and how we gotta do it. And we're not doing it just for the sake of keeping busy, but there's a purpose, there's a goal to the end of that. And you know, I think, one of the resources here would be church. You know, church can be a big social boon to us because we usually have, many of our friends and relatives that are at church. And many people understand what has happened. And we got a very special day coming up in 2 weeks. What's the very special day in 2 weeks?
Reformation.
What?
Halloween.
Halloween.
Reformation.
Go a little farther than that. All Saints Day. And All Saints Day is when we focus on the fact that our loved ones are with God through faith in Jesus the Christ. And that one day we will be able to join them through faith in Christ. And we're not alone. This is a transition. And it doesn't mean that we're happy that our loved ones are not with us, but we are happy that they're with God, even though we miss them and we hurt when we think about it. So it's very important to see that it isn't an either or, it can be a both and. What are some of the resources for physical?
Take more naps.
Take more naps.
Big one.
Okay?
Walk. Walking.
You know, there's all kinds of exercise groups around that some of you might join. And as you go to some of the larger stores, you'll see people walking around the perimeter. Often people get to know each other at that point, and it can help. Going to a doctor can be very helpful. We can go to various types of therapists. We can join activity groups along the way. You can go to a cooking group. You can go to, you know, there's all kinds of clubs going on that you can join. This can be very, very helpful for you. But it's important not to sit at home alone and just ruminate on what's going on. Okay, what are some treatments for the emotional? First of all, we ought to own our emotions. You know, people will read our body language, and often they'll see that we are angry, even when we sort of bite our upper lip and say, I'm doing okay. You know, and some people will say, what's really going on with you? We also need to look people in the eye. How many people will say, well, how you doing today? And they'll look away. You know, when we make eye contact, we can really read what is going on in that person's soul. And a lot of times you'll just see that little tear welling up. That's okay. That's okay. And I dare say all of you would understand if somebody else gets that tear in the eye, where a lot of people out there would really understand that. So there's all kinds of people that can help us. You know, there are psychologists. What's the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist? A psychiatrist will usually give you medication.
They're an
Be
MD.
very careful. A psychologist will talk with you and work at analyzing what is really going on and how you can find the treatment for what's going on. Psychiatrists usually will give you medication. So So you gotta be very careful of that. What's the danger in taking medication? When the medication wears off, you either need more medication, or you need a drink in order to get through it, or you need to change medications. Be very careful. And this is a process. It is not something that's gonna get resolved like that. And the first year is the toughest, because every day is a new day that you haven't been through before without your loved one. And so that first year, you don't know, is it going to be a day of the week? Is it going to be a holiday? Is it going to be a birthday or an anniversary? We really don't know. And Christmas is one of the easiest days. Why? Because everybody knows that you're alone and they want you to come over. But they forget about an anniversary or a birthday, especially the birthday of the person that you lost, and how that might hit you, or Groundhog Day or something like that. So these are all hidden holidays, and we gotta be aware of that. Okay, I'm conscious of time, so we're just gonna finish this up real quick. What does it look like when we are healthy again, physically? What does it look like when we're healthy physically? You feel better.
Look like?
Yeah, you feel good. What else?
You look good.
You
and
look
happy.
good.
Look good.
You look good and happy, yeah. And of course, happy, we could even put that down here with the emotional.
You
You
sleep,
can laugh, yeah.
you sleep,
Hmm?
you sleep.
You sleep, yeah.
We all question that.
You eat
When you're
good.
supposed to.
You eat good. Yeah, you go out with other people.
I'm being
To have a pet.
You might find that you
Pet.
have a new support system. You know, it's sort of like somebody who is working through alcoholism. They're told, don't go back with the people you used to be with, or you're gonna start drinking. Well, if you go back with people who don't understand what you're going through, you're going to end up feeling incomplete, frustrated, things like that. So you're gonna have to find a whole new group of people to associate with, like the people in this room, or other people who understand what loss is all about. You know, in many churches I have been in, the first 3 or 4 weeks, I don't talk about new programs. I talk about where they've been and what it was like for their minister to leave in one fashion or another, whether it's to go to another church, to retire, something else. That's an important process, And we're going to go through that process in the United States as we elect a president next year. So, you know, we gotta be aware that this can go on a national basis too. Remember 9/11? Wow, in 9/11, there was a lot of grieving going on, and it's still going on today, and as people go through, past the wall there, very traumatic, very difficult for people. Okay, what are some of the ways that we are intellectually healthy again?
You can concentrate.
Yeah, you can concentrate. And often you can even solve various things that are going on without needing the help of other people, and you can see all kinds of options that are available out there. What are other ways that we're intellectually healthy again?
We go to shows, we go to movies, we go to concerts.
Yeah, you can go to outside events and enjoy them, and you can even discriminate on the ones you want to go to and the ones you don't want to go to. And over here, we might even have concerts and events as social activities that we get together with other people, excuse me, and go as a group. What are some of the signs that we're healthy socially?
Have a
More
pet.
involved.
Hmm?
You're more involved.
More involved, yeah. And this is as opposed to staying staying home and doing nothing. We have many people in our congregation who are living by themselves, but they're getting out. They're doing things. And that can be very healthy. There's a lot of options out there. And so we don't have to stay isolated. You know, the point of all this is that grief touches all parts of us simultaneously. And what I'd like us to focus on as we break it for about 20 minutes or so is what is your strong part and what is your weak part? You know, many people will say, my strong part is my intellect. I can think through things and really figure out what's going on. My weak part is I don't have any friends. I'm by myself. So all that means is you have to look at how you can deal with that weak part by making some relationships, being with some people. And when push comes to shove, you got to click that brain into gear to figure out what do I need to do and how do I need to do it. So there's no one answer that is better than any other, but it's just an indication of how we function as an individual. So coming around is a sheet that was put together many years ago, just giving us some of the indications of healthy responses to all of these areas that we have on here. It's very small because there are so many rings. What can be? Having a pet. Yeah, having a pet can be very important. And that might be something in the social area. Now, how many of you have talked to your pet? To a pet? You know, and, yeah. Yeah, and you know, that can be very healthy to be able to talk to a pet. And often we will even name a pet after a loved one. And that's okay. You know, these are all areas where we need to readapt. And we gotta get a balance once again. And it takes time.
Okay, who says it now? Give it back.
And in your groups, you might find that you have some resources that somebody else isn't aware of, and they might have some resources that you've never heard of. Begin to share these with each other. You know, there are many grief groups around that are focused on the death of a child. There are many groups around that talk about losing a job, especially if it's because you got fired or the company downsized or things like that. So there's many groups around. So you can share with each other some of the resources you got. So let's break into two groups again. Let's see if we got 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. All right, let's cut it off right here. You all go over here with Larry and Jackie, and let's this group go over here into the conference room, and I'll be in there in a second.
I am.
I'm still thinking about, I'm agreeing with you about Halloween.
Is there any money in there? Don't worry about it.
Not enough to talk about. Enough to take a bus if I was stranded maybe or something.
I'm okay, you're okay.
Well,
It's a deep subject.
Don't make everything out, why?
did you bring your husband? No. Him I don't care about.
Couldn't you say, come on,
Oh, you better put me in
something,
charge
yeah,
tonight.
couldn't you
Oh,
mention
I've
something
got a
about
dirty
bacon?
shirt.
Bacon, yes.
Well, I found bacon muffins
Oh,
in the cookbook, bacon muffins,
Bacon muffins?
yes. I'll have to take another look.
See, I'm not crazy.
I got it.
Well, I don't know.
All right, everybody.
I don't know if I want to go
May I
that
have your
far.
attention?
Yes.
We need the two things that pastor asked for. The first one is where you're the strongest on this, and the second is the weakest. Where do you feel in your situation you're the strongest? And I will go here first.
Oh.
Everybody's gotta participate.
Oh, we're supposed to say.
Where do
it
you
out
feel
loud.
you are the strongest right now?
Give me just a minute, okay.
Emotionally, socially, intellectually, physically?
Or none of the above. You can say that.
Yeah, where you're comfortable, just say
Or you
anything.
can say none of the above.
Yeah.
You're not ready yet.
That probably wasn't fair of me, was it?
No, it's okay, I was just looking at it, I think maybe intellectually I might be the strongest.
Yeah. We'll go right down your row.
You mean you want me to talk?
Yes, you're next. You talk a lot at home, so you
Everybody's
should be able to talk here.
participating.
Well, I'm in a very
That's enough.
unique, I'm in a very unique position. Yes, I've lost many people. I've lost my brother, I've lost my mother, and as we all know, my husband has Parkinson's. And I'll tell you that every day, it takes a piece out of me. But I don't want him to know.
Well, I'm sitting next to you.
This is I wish you would have gone in the room with the other people. But it's very hard.
It is.
I mean, when you see somebody you love and was vibrant and this and that, and, you know, we're both a little on the nutty
Well,
side.
quit yelling at me then.
We're both on the nutty side. He's only teasing about yelling, 'cause I don't yell. That's a difficult situation, and it's not, it doesn't fit into the mold here at all.
But you're grieving over it.
Yes, it's like I'm pre-grieving.
Well, no, you're grieving over what you've already lost. Or I shouldn't say already lost, but what you feel you've lost. You're saying, you know, how involved he was before and going and going and going and doing and how he's had to restrict himself more because of the disease.
You're not going anywhere.
You have a
That's
fear.
what I told you.
That's what it is.
He keeps telling me, no, I'm not, I promise, I'm gonna stay here. Well, you'll know that's not true, 'cause I see changes in him.
Well, can't dwell on it.
I don't dwell on it, but when I see something different in him that was not there a week ago,
You mean like today?
you mean like today when you couldn't punch the thing,
The numbers.
The hand was going a million miles an hour, and I had to do the dialing. I mean, when you